This is the story behind the Behemoth, the strongest stretcher bars I've ever used. If you're like me, then you understand the store-bought canvas just doesn't get the job done. It's too weak and flimsy, and it's got that horrible gesso preparation on it. It can't handle the very basic wear and tear of painting. So what do? I stretch my own Belgian linen, and it has a glue size, which means I can put this Old Master oil ground preparation on top of it. This is the absolute best preparation I've ever found. And once you've tried this, you just can't go back to using gesso canvas or whatever other surface. This is really the best out there for classical painters. Now, before all the experts come to the comments and say how stupid this whole process is, I already know it's very stupid for 99.9% of people, and I absolutely do not recommend that you do this. You need to have some particular needs for this to actually make sense. But I personally do need to have large studio stretcher bars like this, and I need them to be extremely sturdy. That way I can stretch canvas all by myself. See, the problem with store-bought stretch bars is that they're very flimsy, they kind of bend. Once you start stretching on them, they warp, and I can't even stretch it by myself because of that. So for me, it's actually much easier to just work with extremely heavy stretcher bars. So the front face of this stretcher bar is going to be store-bought stretcher bars, and that's because it's actually a pretty decent price for my purposes. Just makes it quick and easy to put it together, and then I can use that as a base. Now I could just buy cross braces, but the number one problem is that they press up against the canvas. They're just too close to the front face of the stretcher bars. So as you're painting, or even for me, if I'm going to be applying this oil ground preparation, it becomes a major issue that is pressed against the canvas, and it will leave permanent lines which just absolutely destroys the painting. And in any case, the crossbars usually don't do their job. I still have problems with warping and bending, even with the cross braces. So the big advantage to all of this is that it's going to completely support the stretcher bars, so I don't have to worry about warping or bending. And that means that I will be able to actually stretch this canvas all by myself. I don't need to have somebody else in the studio to hold the stretcher bars together with me. And on top of that, it's going to be far enough set back in the support that I won't have to worry about the canvas dragging on those cross braces. There's also the added bonus that I'm saving a little bit of money here. So it was about $19 for the wood that I will use here for the cross braces. The same cross braces online would cost $130. So obviously you need to square away your stretcher bars. You want to get them as square as you can. Something convenient as well is that these OBS sheets that I'm using are usually very well squared, so you can really line up your stretchers on top of this based on the corners, and you're going to get this lined up pretty quick. This is a huge frame, so added clamps on the sides as well, and I want to make sure I have basically just clamps everywhere, so that way I can get everything squared and keep it squared. Now I can start drilling. This is the fun part. I mean, we're already halfway there, I would say. So it's always a good idea to pre-drill your holes. That way your screws don't crack the wood. So I'm just eyeballing here and going around trying to space these out where it kind of makes sense, and it's probably overkill, but I want to make sure the board is going to be secure on the back and it's going to pull it in flat. So I'm spacing these out about 6 inches or so. After I drill these holes, then I can change the bit, and this is an important part of the process. I'm going to countersink the screws. So basically I'm creating a wider hole just for the upper part of the screw head. That way it will be allowed to sit in the wood and not stick out, because if you have, some screws that are uneven, if it's poking out of the wood, then suddenly you run into the same problem as with the cheap stretcher bars, which is that you're going to be running into your canvas. So then I just go around and just add screws to all the holes. That's really all there is to it. After the screws are in place with this sheet, I add the additional cross braces, which is basically just 2x4s or 2x6s, and you can get these for really cheap, but they help to really give the support, because now you're going across again and it's going to just pull everything together. And they're also very handy for moving the canvas, because you're going to have a good place to get a firm grip. One difference here is that I'm going to be using 2 different kinds of screws. Either way, I'm still going to pre-drill all of the holes, and I'm going to countersink the screws to make sure we don't have any loose ends poking out. So that's really all there is to it. That's how you make a giant, extremely sturdy stretcher bar frame. If you want a complete guide to stretching your canvas and preparing it with 2 layers of Old Master oil ground, I'm going to leave that linked in the description. It's a complete step-by-step guide. It goes through absolutely everything you need to know about how to prepare your canvas like the Old Masters. Otherwise, I highly recommend that you join my newsletter, nickthurman.com/newsletter. There's going to be a ton of free resources there for classical painters. If you want even more in-depth videos about classical painting or one-on-one mentorship, join me on Patreon, patreon.com/nickthurman. There I go more in depth about all of these subjects, and I also will answer any questions you have at all. Anything you want to see in a video, I will talk about, guaranteed. With that being said, thank you so much for watching, and have a great rest of your day.